Udaya Anjali Dhamma Shimano Vishadibam Arhasatu Pulapuvedo Rajajayadina Udaya Anjali Dhamma Shimano Vishadibam Arhasatu Pulapuvedo Vaishnavis. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Utaya, getting up. Pranjali, with folded hands. Prabha, in a humble manner. Ikshamana, seeing. Drisha, with his eyes. Vibhum, the Supreme Person within this universe. Harsha, of jubilation. Ashru, with tears. Ulaka, with hairs standing on the body. Udbeda, enlivened. Gira, by word. Gadgadaya, faltering. Agrinat, pray. Translation. Then getting up from the ground and seeing Lord Brahma before him. The head of the Daityas was overwhelmed by jubilation. With tears in his eyes, his whole body shivering, he began praying in a humble mood, with folded hands and a faltering voice, to satisfy Lord Brahma. So we'll read, no purport, so we'll read the next two texts with translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shri hiranyakashyapu uvacha kalpante kalashustena yondena tamasavitam abhivyana gata idam swayam jyotir swaruchisha atmana trivita chedam shichat yavati lampati rajasattvatamodhamne varaya mahate namaha. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness by the influence of time. And then again, during his next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys the entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy, which is invested with the three modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattva-gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. Purport. The words Abhimagnag Jagat Idam refer to He who creates this cosmic manifestation. The original creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Shamadhyasya Yataha. Lord Brahma is the secondary creator. When Lord Brahma is empowered by Lord Krishna as the engineer to create a phenomenal world, he becomes the supremely powerful. He becomes the supremely powerful feature within this universe. The total material energy is created by Krishna, and later, taking advantage of all that has necessarily been created, Lord Brahma engineers the entire phenomenal universe. At the end of Lord Brahma's day, everything up to Svarga Loka is inundated with water. And the next morning, when there is darkness in the universe, Brahma again brings the phenomenal manifestation into existence. Therefore, he is described here as he who manifests this universe. Tringunan Vinoti. Lord Brahma takes advantage of the three modes of material nature. Prakriti, material nature, is described here as Trivrita, the source of the three material modes. Srimad Bhattacharya comments in this connection that Trivrita means Prakritya. Thus, Lord Krishna is the original creator and Lord Brahma is the original engineer. Om Jnana Kananjana Sharakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vichaitanyamano Vishtam Tapitam Yena Buddhade Swayam Rupakata Padyam Padati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Kristaya Buddhade Shrimati Bhaktivinoda Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivakari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this verse, some things sound very contradictory. Like hiranyakashyapu, harsha, ashru, feeling great jubilation, tears coming from his eyes. pulaka, hair standing on the body, udveda, being very enlivened, and even the most amazing thing, in a humble, prabha, in a humble manner. He wants to conquer the universe. He wants to subdue Indra with great humility. So this is not possible. So all of this is artificial. Just like it says in the second canto, in the third chapter, I can't remember the verse now, but that anyone who shows signs of ecstasy, but their heart has not melted. Otherwise, if the heart is not in the proper condition, how does the heart come to a proper condition? Lord Chaitanya, Shikshastika, he has explained to him. If you want the heart to be in the proper condition, then Trinadavi Sunichena Turodi Vansa Vishnuna Manina Manidina Kirtaniya Sadhari. You have to inundate the heart with the holy name. But for the holy name to fully penetrate and enter, and because Chetodharpana Marjanam, we can eliminate some of the contamination in the heart. But Bhava Mahadvagni Nirvapanam means we have to eliminate the subtle elements that are there within the subconscious, within the subtle karma of the living entity. And then auspiciousness can begin. So someone there may be tears in the eyes, just like Srila Prabhupada said, some unscrupulous people, they put a little bit of chili powder, in their eye, and so tears are coming, and they'll do something to make themselves hair stand on end. But actually, I've seen many times when I arrive in some country or some airport, you see family members, they're also, tears are coming from the eye, hairs are standing on end. Until they get home and they start arguing with one another and fighting. What about this? Why didn't you study? Why did you do this? So there has to be a transformation of the heart. And so there's no transformation here. In the previous verse, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, although Hiranyakashyapu offered his obeisances to Lord Brahma, he was strongly inimical to Lord Vishnu. So it's all formalities. And therefore, in our own Krishna consciousness, we have to make sure that we are not going through some mechanical process. I go, I offer my obeisances to the deity, I jump and dance and chant. But the real symptom is that if I'm actually dancing, chanting, offering obeisances in the proper way, then there will be nectar or amrita. So amrita, externally speaking, means the end of the temporary body, beyond death. But amrita goes beyond that. It also means that there is an end to all the limitations that keep us from feeling the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. And those limitations, the mental platform. Therefore, those who chant the Gayatri mantra, they say in the beginning that by this mantra, I go beyond the physical, the mental, and the intellectual plane. Just like Srila Prabhupada explained in Tut, even beyond the conception of the go beyond that to the Supreme Personality and His transcendental effulgence, Srimati Radharani. Go beyond all these things. So Srila Prabhupada, when he first was beginning the movement, he gave his explanation of the holy name, saying that this holy name is not situated on the physical, mental, or intellectual plane. It is beyond. It is totally spiritual. So, all these things, this jubilant, he's very jubilant. He's very happy, he's very blissful, because he's thinking, it worked, I was successful. In previous verses, he says that, I will, by my power, by my austerity, by my sacrifice, I will take the post of Brahma. Srila Prabhupada said many times, this is the Mayavad conception, that I bow before the spiritual master, but then I want to step on his head and go beyond. So this is his position. Yes, I will offer obeisances. I will now, in the two last verses that we read, he's glorifying Brahma. But this is just to try to make him all think I'm very nice. They say when Krishna was born, Vasudeva offered prayers. And then Devaki began to offer prayers. But she had a motive. Vasudeva's motive was he was amazed that, it's stated in the Bhagavatam, amazed, first of all, that the Lord has appeared in a prison house. Generally, the Lord appears in a very glorious way. Just like when Gajendra was in great trouble, difficulty, he began to pray to the Lord. And the demigods were thinking, what is the use of his prayers? He's just an elephant. Sometimes we pray and we don't even get the full result. What is the use of this elephant, this foolish elephant? And then they saw Lord Vishnu coming in a most wonderful way, on Garuda. And they thought, oh, this elephant is very special. Then they accompanied Lord Vishnu, thinking, let us make up for our offensive mentality. So therefore, Vasudeva was thinking, the Lord, he should be appearing with, hosts of demigods, and but he's appearing in a prison, and he's appearing. I'm just an ordinary mortal, human being, and yet he's appearing as my son. He was thinking like, this is amazing. Of course, he's also teaching us how we should think when we have the wonderful opportunity of that the holy name is manifesting in our mind, in our consciousness. We should feel so grateful and amazed that Krishna, in this most merciful form, Why is the holy name most merciful? Because the holy name will accompany us in any situation. The deity will not, jump off the altar and come with us. Although Srila Prabhupada, as I've said many times, in Los Angeles, he was giving one class, and many times Srila Prabhupada would feel this ecstasy of, even a couple of times in Atlanta, USA, in Caracas, Venezuela, in Vrindavan, he would be speaking about, especially about Gornitai or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he would go into ecstasy. In Caracas, Venezuela, he was in ecstasy for like 5 minutes. Devotees didn't know what to do. But then someone remembered that they had, it was a little unusual, but someone had read that when Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy and unconscious, that the devotees chanted the holy name. So all the devotees started chanting. First they were just sitting there, what's going on? Prabhupada? And I wasn't there, but the devotees had told me that actually there were tears shooting from his eyes. And then, and he was just sitting straight up. And then devotees started chanting, and then he came to external consciousness. And he spoke for like 5 minutes, and he just left, feeling such ecstasy. So, Srila Prabhupada would feel such ecstasy. And so at this particular time, he looked at Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, and he said, they do not want to stay in the temple. No. He said, you must take them in your hearts and take them out on Sankirtan. So the point is that the deities will not so easily accompany us. Of course, that's why we should meditate on the deities in the morning. Just as Lord Chaitanya taught us, when he would meditate on Lord Chaitanya, sometimes for hours, just meditating on the transcendental form. So at least we should meditate long enough on the deities so we remember how the deity is very beautifully dressed. Just like when you read in the Bhagavatam, anytime it speaks about the appearance of the Lord, it will always describe what he's wearing. He's wearing a beautiful yellow cloth, or he's doing this, or he has a beautiful Vajayanti, garland, and always some description of his form. And therefore we should remember the deity has appeared in this beautiful way. And if we can take that remembrance into our mind and into our heart, then it will accompany us all day. That vision will be there. When I was on Radha Damodar party, Tripurari Maharaj, we would, after seeing, getting darshan of the deities, we would sit down later to take prasadam. Then he would say, so what kind of crown did the deity have? He would ask someone. If you didn't remember, no prasad. So everybody was very attentive to remember exactly how the deity is dressed. It was Radha Damodar deity. They were this big, so it was a little easier. We got like 3 deities. It's a little harder to remember every, crown, every turban, every type of dress, all the colors. Therefore, sometimes the pujaris make it easy because they're all wearing the same color like today. And sometimes they're wearing different colors, completely different. So it makes it a little more difficult. But even then, the holy name will accompany us in this most strangest conditions. Just like one time I had a car accident, and the car was flipping over in the air, and somehow or another I was able to remember the holy name. I didn't know what would happen afterward, and I was very happy because I didn't think I would. Just like Srila Prabhupada says that you can teach a parrot to chant the holy name, but when the cat comes, it will not chant the holy name. It will go but I was at least happy somehow or another I got some mercy from Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara that I could chant. So we have to make sure that our Krishna consciousness is happening in a real way. And the way to do that, Lord Chaitanya, we just stated. And then he says, to make sure humility manifests, that tolerance becomes the way that I confront every situation in my life, to make sure that I offer respects to everyone, and that I don't look for any respect. Na dana, na jana, na sundari kavita. No. That I don't look for any wealth in this world. Understanding Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the supreme proprietor of everything. And Najana, I always mention that it's so important not to want to be admired in this world, that Lord Chaitanya says it twice. Amanina and Najana. Basically the same thing. I don't want followers. I don't want to be admired. I don't want some reputation. I simply want to be the servant of the Supreme Personality of God. This is what I want. But of course, that's not happening here. So even a demon can teach us. Of course, he may be feeling some of this ecstasy because he's actually a devotee. So even though he was in, just like Vishnu Thakur points out, when Hiranyakasyapu is insulting Varahadev, that actually he's glorified because he's a devotee. So by the Acharya's realization, we can see that a devotee cannot help but glorify the Lord. So also, he's a devotee. So he sees a great personality, just like Putana. When Putana came to kill Krishna, but when she saw Krishna, she was a little bit, momentarily overwhelmed by his beauty. And she wasn't even a devotee. She was the daughter of Bali Maharaj previous birth, so she had a daughter of a devotee. And she was amazed, and she said, "This child is very beautiful." But then the demoniac tendency came in, just like Kamsa. So when Vasudeva offered his first son, Kamsa was moved. He was emotionally, stirred. Because he could never do such a thing. How can a father how can someone have this much honor, this much virtue? It's an impossible understanding for him, so he was a bit overwhelmed. He said, "You don't have to bring any more sons." But then immediately his demoniac, advisors said, "No, don't do that. You have to make sure he fulfills his promise." So very difficult. And that's another lesson that we see, sometimes we want to have a nice material situation, or we want to be comfortable, or we want to be mentally peaceful. But we can see, you look at every story of every devotee in the Bhagavatam, even devotees like Ranti Dev, he was never disturbed. But look at all the difficulty he had to go through. Practically speaking, he came to the point where he would not be able to drink water after such a great fast. He would certainly leave his body, but it was more important to fulfill his duty and to serve others. So and in some cases, the devotees came to their realization that just like Dhruva Maharaj, when he was killing the Yakshas, he came to the realization that I shouldn't kill all these people because he was instructed. But always, you see, so much difficulty. Every devotee, to attain Krishna consciousness, there's always such great difficulty. And therefore, we shouldn't think that it's going to be very easy for me. And if it's very easy, we should think that any time now, maybe I'm making it easy. Maybe by my own desire for prestige, or for recognition, or for wealth, or for position, that I'm not experiencing all these difficulties. And then, of course, our ahankar will come and say, "Oh, that's because I'm a special, I'm pretty advanced. I've been following my course, and I know many shlokas, and I know this, and I've been doing a lot of service." So these things, all these warnings are there. The devotees, we see it one after another. Just see what so many devotees have had to go through. Every one of our acharyas also. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was plagued by one disease after another. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to go through so many austerities. And then when he did Vrindavan Parikram, they were trying to kill him by stoning him, throwing stones and bricks at him. Kuresh, the disciple of Ramanuja, had his eyes put out. You can imagine what that feels like. But ready and willing to, he knew that he would be tortured. He knew that when I take Ramanuja's place and dress like him and go in his place to see the Shaivite king, I will be tortured. He knew that. But his devotion was so great that he was willing to accept these austerities and penances and sacrifices. So, but here just the opposite, all mechanical, all calculated. So just like Devaki, I was coming to that point, she also made calculated prayers, but they were out of motherly ecstasy, being a mother and being the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she was thinking, let me, Srila Prabhupada explains it, that she was thinking, let me praise Krishna, and then he'll do what I want. And because what did she want? She was afraid that Kamsa would find Krishna. And especially she was thinking, he's so big, how will Kamsa not find him? So he was thinking all this time, I will praise him, and then by that praise, he will be obliged, he will feel obliged to me, and I can tell him to hide. And so there was motivation, but the motivation was pure. Just like we say, ahaituka patiyata, ahaituki. There should be no motivation, but that means no material motivation. A devotee also always has motivation. But what is the motivation? To please Krishna, to give pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There must be motivation. Just like it says here in the first verse that we read, Udbeda, one must be enlivened. And Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha, there must be enthusiasm. There must be motivation. Srila Prabhupada, in his famous letter to Karandar in 1972, which many devotees know, he said that he was speaking to the leaders. He said, a leader must always present a fresh challenge. Otherwise, devotees, that way they will be enlivened, they will be motivated. If devotional service, there's no fresh challenge, then, especially in our conditioned stage, we'll start thinking, oh, the devotional service, same thing every day. Get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, 3 whatever time. Have to get up early. Go to Mangalarti. Just like you say. And then if your mind thinks, now I have to chant my round. Just like I've mentioned, but I'll mention it again. One devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, how can I chant 16 rounds with quality? And Srila Prabhupada said, 16 rounds means no quality. If you want to do the minimum, there's no quality. You should not be able to stop chanting. And the only reason you chant 16 rounds is because you have so much service to do. Otherwise, you can't stop chanting. That's quality. So, we can understand how much quality is there in my devotional service by how much enthusiasm I have to serve. By that enthusiasm, even if I'm doing the same thing every day, I get up, I go to Mangalarti, I sit and chant my round, I go to the rest of the morning program, Guru Puja, reading deities, Bhagavatam class. Just like some Guru Kulis told me once, we have two mantras, one for getting up and one for going to sleep. For going to sleep, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And for waking up, Sarita Vijaya. These are our two favorite mantras. Showing how mechanical consciousness, this mechanical consciousness that hiranyakashyapu is exhibiting. And Lord Brahma is not, he was actually, in the previous verses it says, he was a bit surprised that how could someone be doing these austerities for 100 celestial years? Their whole body was eaten up by ants. You know? And we get one little ant bite, you know, and we're like, oh, one mosquito bite, suffering so much. The other day I stepped on a fire ant. I was in the jungle. I stepped on a fire ant. These ants are about this big, you know, and they have big, you know, like you can see these. Their head is big, and even bigger than their head are their teeth, you know. And you know, and you know, I was practically crying. You know, it was so painful. And you know, that's one little ant bite, and he took a little chunk, you know. But to speak of having your whole body eaten up, actually, this was a favorite African torture. And it was also to prove how your manlyhood in African tribes and also American Indian tribes, they would put honey or some sweet substance and tie you up, and then the ants would come and start, you know, eating up the sweet and biting you, you know. And you'd have to wait for a certain amount of time, and you know, if you could withstand it, then you were a good warrior. And if you couldn't withstand it, you would die. You know, so better to be a good warrior. You know. If you started crying or something, they would just leave you there, and you would get eaten up, and you figure you're not a good warrior. And if you could stand without crying and then you're a good warrior, and they would untie you. You know. So luckily, Krishna's tests are not quite so difficult. Although actually, in one sense, the tests that Krishna gives us are the most difficult, because it means giving up the false ego, giving up pride, and becoming tolerant. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, it says that Yasman no dvijate loko lokan no dvijate cha, that a symptom of being very dear to Krishna, these are the most, of all the symptoms I find, these are the two most difficult that Krishna speaks about in the 12th chapter. That you are never disturbed by anyone, nor do you ever disturb anyone. It's very difficult, you know, because the material world, kaliyuga, is so, you know, annoying. It's just so much difficulty and so many problems. And so to go through this is very difficult. So then in the last two verses that we read, Hiranyakashyapu is glorifying Brahma as the supreme person in the universe. Atmaman manyate jagat. We want the conception. In this case, he wants his conception of supreme reaches as high as he can possibly, because he hates Vishnu, as Srila Prabhupada says in the previous purport. He hates Vishnu. Vishnu is his enemy. And therefore, he could not conceive of Vishnu as the supreme, even though he's a devotee, but not thinking like a devotee. That's another thing we have to learn. I don't declare myself I'm a devotee. Just like sometimes people say to me, when I became a devotee, I said, oh, you're very fortunate. Some of us are still aspiring, but you became a devotee. Please give me your technique. You know? So we should not think like that. We should think only by the mercy of Sri Guru and Sri Parampara and the Vaishnavas, I'm able to perform some service by their mercy. Not because I deserve it, because you know I finally made the grade, I'm finally up there and qualified. So this is the consciousness of a Vaishnava, so pure. And Srila Prabhupada exhibited this so many times. So he's thinking Brahma is the supreme person, just like the Yamadutas. When they encountered the Vishnu Dutas, They didn't know what to do. These people were more powerful. How can anyone overpower us in taking someone out of their body? Because He is the Supreme. How can anyone counteract His supremacy, His power? And they were amazed. Just like when we're conditioned in this material world, we're thinking, how can anyone be more intelligent than me? How can anyone be more qualified than me? If they are, it's just because I haven't exerted myself enough. I become the most wonderful. The false ego is so powerful. So he's thinking like this. The Yamadutas thought like that. And then Yamaraj, Srila Prabhupada comments there that Yamaraj only has jurisdiction over human beings. He doesn't even have jurisdiction over animals, because animals don't acquire karma. No. Their destiny is already set. That's what Prabhupada explained. That Yamaraj has no jurisdiction over the animals. They will simply take their next birth according to the destiny that they are undergoing. So Yamaraj, although the Yamadutas saw him as all-pervading, he was thinking, I have a very limited realm. And as far as the devotees, I cannot touch them. Just like when Jagai and Madai were liberated, then everybody came. Lord Shiva came, and Lord Shiva began to dance in ecstasy, and twirling around, all of his clothes went off, and he didn't even realize. And then Yamaraj came, and he also began to dance in ecstasy. And then, because his scribes came, Gupta, and so they said, the question was raised, how many sinful activities did they perform? And he said, I had 100 scribes, 100 people writing constantly for their whole lifetime, and they could never come to an end. That's how much they, And then Yamaraj said, but all that has been overcome by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he fainted. He fainted, and it was almost like he wasn't even breathing. His unconscious state was so deep, feeling the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that they had to revive him. Like he had left his body almost. And so this is the mercy of the Lord. So the Yamadutas were amazed, and then Yamaraj informed them that actually they had some suspicion there might be somebody above. And their mentality was that if someone is above, then we should serve them. Why should we be serving, we want to serve the topmost person. Just like the sons of Kalanemi, Kamsa's previous birth, they thought, that our Father wants us to be servants of hiranyakashyapu, but we see that Brahma is greater than hiranyakashyapu. We're going to serve him, and therefore they had to take birth as the sons of Vasudeva, killed by their own father, and so very complex karmic situation. So, but then, not just me, but Swayambhu, Swayambhu also, Narada, Shambhu, Janaka, Bhishma, Vyasaki, Bali, we are all 12 of us, are great personalities, but we're all under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of God. And none of us can escape his authority. And then the Yamadutas accepted that when they could see the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted that but Hiranyakashyapu will not accept the authority of Brahma. He will not accept. We'll see that. And he's already said, I will take his place. First, let me offer prayer. So we have to be careful also that we don't have this mentality that let me offer my obeisances to the gurus and the sannyasis and the great devotees and great Vaishnavas. And then I can also take that position. Just like the sannyasis, Mayavad sannyasis, when they saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sat down and then he exhibited his Brahmajyoti. And they thought, oh, Narayana, he made it. They wanted to inquire from him, how did you do it? We also want to become Narayan. How did you do it? Please explain to us. So this is the same type of mentality here. I will offer prayers. He's feeling great jubilation and great ecstasy because he's thinking, it's working. I did my austerities. Just see, now Brahma has become my servant. I will get my prayers answered for immortality, and I will overcome him, overthrow him. And just to conclude, I was in 1977. I went to meet the dictator of Panama at that time, Omar Torrijos. And so he was a nice man, actually. He because one of his ministers got a book, and he got the book, the Prabhupada book, and he said, who are these people? Find them. And so they found us, and he said, well, the dictator, he wants to see you. We thought maybe he was going to restrict us. But he came in, he stood up, and he said, oh, this book is very wonderful. Please explain it to me. So we started explaining, and he was listening very attentively. And his right-hand man, whose name was Noriega, he said, can you from these books, can you learn the art of killing enemies? No. And then the dictator said, shut up. But later on, that dictator overthrew him, had him killed, and he took over. So this is the same mentality. I saw it happen in person. I could see this evil mind of this man. And then it was like maybe 4 months later, the dictator went in on a helicopter, and the helicopter blew up. And then his right-hand man, probably his left-hand man, actually. Suspect the left hand is not so auspicious. And he took over, and then he got overthrown. And so Hiranyakashyapu doesn't realize it. But by doing this, by trying to do, first of all, he never did overthrow Brahma. But he thought he could. So we have to be very careful to always have the mentality that I am a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am a servant of the devotees of the Lord. And always have that degree of humility that Srila Prabhupada taught us. Srila Prabhupada was the most sophisticated person practically on the planet, and came and lived in deplorable conditions, miserable conditions, just to give Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy to the fallen conditions. So, such a wonderful opportunity that we have so close after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, guided by residents of Goloka Vrindavan, stemming down from Mahaprabhu through the Parampara to Srila Prabhupada. We have this magnificent shelter, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, the austerities of Raghunath. And we just have to take advantage of it. If we don't take advantage of it, it's simply, we're actually acting in the same way as hiranyakashyapu. Let me become great. Srila Prabhupada, just to conclude again, Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning, the very beginning, when there were just a few devotees coming in New York, he started to give Sanskrit classes. But then after a little while, he stopped. And one of the devotees asked him, it was Mukunda Maharaj, well, Prabhupada, he was thinking that Prabhupada was giving these Sanskrit classes just to attract people, but actually just wanted them to chant Hare Krishna. And that also may have been true. But he asked Prabhupada, why did you stop giving the classes? He said, because you will simply become puffed up, thinking that you know. And therefore, Prabhupada actually taught them how to clean the floor, how to clean the pots, how to clean the bathroom. This is, lessons in humility and lessons in tolerance. So if we can all become servants of Shikshastika, servants of the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then we will become happy in Krishna consciousness. And amrita, we will taste the nectar. The nectar of not being limited by any of the factors that cause so much distress, especially to devotees who are trying to advance in Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop here. These are some thoughts on this verse. Any comments or questions? Yes. Pitamrita Prabhu. Use the microphone.
Thank you very much for giving very deep realization and explanation of this verse. Actually, Hiranyakashyapu is not a form of state, he is Brahmani. He thought out of ignorance because Putin, Brahmani also did not give God Vishnu by his own austerity, by his own mystic power, by his own friends. Brahmani got the highest position himself. So no immediately Vishnu got. He got his knowledge also by himself. So we are like the same devotee. So you are yourself or doing everything. So he is not. Now he also had this idea that I also will perform austerity by my own austerity, by my own power, my own friends. I will get the highest position of this universe. I will get Brahmaji, and then I will maintain also by my own austerity that Brahmaji, nobody will replace me. So I will replace Brahmaji, but nobody will replace me. So he had this idea. So Brahmaji is also not going to come to give validation to Hiranyakashyapu. But Brahmaji received the information from demigods that this performing austerity are destruction. Out of ignorance, somebody performing austerity, so there is what Atmano Vidya, Asya Tattvam Sandhana. So austerity is not of ignorance, either he progress himself or he destroys others. So Hiranyakashyapu austerity is not of ignorance. And that is why the fire was coming from his head and he was trying to plants and Brahmaji also. So Brahmaji was afraid. So Brahmaji thought he has to stop his austerity. So to stop his austerity, Brahmaji was specifying stop his austerity and good austerity. Nobody can perform this kind of austerity. I am dedicated by your austerity. So in this way, Brahmani specified him, and he said, okay, you ask me this. So actually, Hiranyakashyapu, when he saw Brahmani, so God said, Harsu, so this is Harsa. So Hars is out of more goodness, more of passion, Hars and so. Hars is one the doer in mode of passion is full of jubilation and full of meditation. So this Hars, so this structure, then krsna into meditation, sloka. So this is, you also explain like that. So this is temporary ecstasy. So this is the separate seal that hiranyakashyapu with heaven, that somebody has comes that himself to be not all Brahman, to be not want to surrender to Brahman, to do not want to surrender to anybody. And he thought that Brahman is also not surrender to anybody, no more with you, he by himself, by his own authority, become the highest, the highest.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Is it working? Oh, now it's working. Anyway, you can see if that works.
Thank you very much for the class. As you were explaining that we should desire to become God, or we should desire to be servant of the servant. And by default, this consciousness, the materialistic or contaminated consciousness takes over. We desire to be big or we desire to be important or something. So, as long as we hear, so for 1-2 minutes, that consciousness or that desire may come of the consciousness. How to maintain the mood or what is the hope that we'll be actually able to have a proper consciousness of being the servant.
Do what we're doing, but do it sincerely. Otherwise, just what I tried to make the point, don't go through the motions. Otherwise, don't do this process of Krishna consciousness mechanically. Don't even see it as a process. Process means mechanical. It's not really, we say process because it requires in the beginning a certain amount of mechanical behavior. Otherwise, we're inclined to do this, but I will do this. I accept this austerity. But ultimately, it has to come to the point where we do it naturally, otherwise spontaneous devotional service. So we should not be satisfied until, because there are 3 stages of approaching the Supreme Lord. First is bhaya, out of fear of suffering, fear of death, we surrender. But that's not very permanent. As soon as I feel like, I'm better situated, I forget about that. Second platform is out of duty, dharma. I have my duty to the Lord. This is nishta, the nishta platform. We see duty. But ultimately, most important is starting at the bhava stage, that spontaneously, I want to please Krishna because I love Krishna. I have attraction to Krishna. I don't see anything else except for Krishna. It's like I always quote the one verse, but I can't think of it right now. The 3rd canto, 9th chapter, 1st verse. Very beautiful verse. Speaks about the beauty. How if you actually are seeing the beauty of Krishna, nothing in this world will appear to be very beautiful. And then Prabhupada quotes Param Vishwa that when you get that higher taste, Param Vishwa Nivartate, that there's nothing else, and nothing else is interesting. So that's we have to keep striving to please Krishna. And that's the whole key. Because pleasing Krishna, if we're thinking of something for myself, then it's motivated. But if we're thinking something for Krishna, then our motivation is pure. Not self-motivated, but only motivated with the desire to please Krishna. All right.
In starting, it feels like we are living without permission, but now it's like we are living a but it's not coming from the side, like we don't want to better, we don't want to chant, but we are really protecting. So how we can do it now? And but it's not coming from the side, we don't want to do it. So how we can do it?
Because when we chant the holy name, Nam Nam, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, that if we're chanting properly, then the form of the Lord will appear in our heart. Otherwise, will we remember Krishna? And the qualities of the Lord will, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he explains, when he's explaining his purport in the 11th canto about the Prakrita Bhakta. He says the Prakrita Bhakta sees people enjoying within this world and he thinks, I also want to enjoy like that. Why should I do these austerities and accept all these difficult conditions? People are enjoying very nicely. Therefore, this devotional life seems to be limiting. So that's why Prakrita Bhakta is very dangerous. Because we can fall, we can think that trying to enjoy this world, everybody is doing it, and I'm trying to be a devotee and I'm suffering. And therefore, why do people leave Krishna consciousness? Because they think that I'm not happy. But I see all these people, they seem to be happy. Unless you live in Somalia, or then you maybe not see so many people being very happy. So just the thought that there's anything in this world that can create pleasure except serving Krishna, that's such a dangerous thought. At least if we're in Maya, we should understand I'm in Maya. Then you can get out. But if you justify your Maya, then there's no question of getting out. Any other questions, comments? Thank you all very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi.